Hi, Phil Aston here from Now Spinning Magazine with another album review. This is a vinyl album review, and it is an album from a long time ago. It is an album that, prior to this, I was only aware of one track which appeared on an Island compilation album, not one of the vinyl ones. There was a 3 CD set, Strangely Strange but Oddly Normal, and there was a track from this album on there, which is called Black Mass, an Electric Storm in Hell. A very, very strange piece of music, I must say. And I love early Island albums. I love the progressive rock. I love the hard rock. I love the exploratory way that Chris Blackwell kind of just let anything in at a certain point in the label's career. This is a very, very strange album, and I didn't know what to expect. The only reference point I can think of, which kind of segues into another couple of album reviews I'm about to do, is Ceremony by Spooky Tooth, because I'm about to review 2 new Spooky Tooth reissues of the first album and Spooky 2. And then I'll tell this full story, but Spooky Tooth basically almost committed, well, they did really, career suicide by teaming up with this experimental French composer to release Ceremony, which is not far off being almost unlistenable in places, which leads me back to The White Noise. I was trying to think, how do I describe this album? Is it good? Is it awful? If you have a salesperson come around to your house and you want to get rid of anybody, you could put this on. Now, some people will kind of be watching this saying, no, but Phil, you don't understand it. I think the fact that the only person online I could find who actually loves this as a piece of art is Julian Cope, who, again, I think this is good to talk about because I'm about to review, with Sue this time, a couple of Julian Cope albums, because thanks to Sue, I'm a fan of Julian Cope. And Julian Cope has a very esoteric taste in music, and I think the more strange he is, the more he's drawn to it. I mean, one of his favourite albums is Zit by Tangerine Dream, which I'm a huge fan of Tangerine Dream, and that particular album is one that I probably don't struggle with, but it's not the one I play the most. So it seems apparent that when I went searching for what do other people think of this, that it was Julian's webpage from a long time ago that brought it together. I was aware of it, I guess, because of the Delia Derbyshire, who does the electronic sound realisation, and she worked for the BBC sound department, I believe. And it says at the top of the record, many sounds have never been heard by humans. Some sound waves you don't hear, but they reach you. Storm stereo techniques combine singers, instrumentalists, and complex electronic sound. The emotional intensity is at a maximum. This is before the Moog synthesizer. This is seen as one of the most important releases for the birth of electronic music. If you're into early Pink Floyd with Syd Barrett, that would probably give you a doorway into some of it, but not all of it. Side 1 is remarkably different to side 2. Side 1 is kind of lighter. It's bonkers. It's completely bonkers in places. As I say, Dealey worked at the BBC, and I've got some bits where we move on to some of the tracks where Julian brings this in, if I can. The first track, which is called Love Without Sound, is unusual in itself, but it's My Game of Loving, which is sung by Annie Bird, which is probably one of the most strangest bits you'll have heard. It's a bit Nico-ish in places, perhaps. The drums are soft in places. And then about halfway through, it goes into what's described as an electronic orgy. It was actually also apparently a real orgy, and so the sounds that you can hear mixed in with all the clatter of the instrumentation, you don't have to take your imagination too far to make this sound like that part of Whole Lotta Love with Robert Plant. Imagine that multiplied by 100,000. And that's probably where it is. Julian reckons if you turn it up loud enough, you can hear the sound of whips and a mixture of pain and delight being felt by the receivers of this stuff. All that excitement ends appropriately with the sound of snoring. The next track is Here Come the Fleas, which is bonkers. It's just bonkers. It's the kind of thing that puts Frank Zappa in his most bonkers phrase into making him sound like just a serious pop singer, if you like. It's just mad. It's like Syd Barrett just turned up to 11. I quite happily, in a way, sailed through this, although I was thinking, if you put this on anyone around who didn't know what it was, I don't believe anyone could ignore this music. I don't think anyone could put this on and just think, oh, I wonder what that's that. I wonder what they're playing. You'd have to say, what is this? It is like that. However, side 2 is dark. It's like something from a 60s horror film. It's really disturbing. It's not easy listen. Basically, there are lyrics. The Visitation. It's basically about a car crash. And at one point, you've just got someone sobbing over this absolutely disturbing, menacing, electronic, freak out bunch of sounds. Some of this stuff apparently took nearly 3 months to record because it was just literally cutting and pasting and no sequencing, no ways of programming any of this. They actually had to do it. And when you look at the pictures of the band members, they just look so normal, I guess. It's an album that's been out of print loads of times, and every time it appears, it disappears really, really quickly. It's kind of one of these things that people talk about in hushed whispers, I think. But the last one, Black Mass Electronic Storm in Hell, is so dark and scary. Julian Cope says, I can't always make it to the end. It starts with chanting and moves into a drum solo that continues throughout. It's just there are piercing screams. There are people crying out in pain. The previous track has got, someone dies from a motorcycle accident. It's just really, really unlike anything else you will ever hear in your entire life of listening to music. I think Julian says you should listen to that on headphones. I wouldn't want to do that. I don't think. And he does say at the end of it, when you must, at the end of playing this, he said it's not an easy ride. You're telling me. You need to switch the stereo off and relax. Well, I just put on something as far different as I could, which wasn't that hard to do. What are my overall views? Is it a classic of the embryonic birth of electronic music? Well, possibly. I think what I felt was it just made me think of this period of music. I've always thought that 1968 to 1972, I suppose I could go to 67 to 72, was the most explorative part for music history ever. If you think about what happened during that period, all the bands, all the big bands, all of it, whether it's progressive rock or heavy metal, all the bands and all the different types of vocal styles, all came out of that little section of literally 4 or 5 years. And then there's this, which also came out at that point in time on Island Records. It just shows just how, and these all created by young people of the time, obviously. Very, very unusual. I'm lost for words. I don't know if it's genius or whether it's just absolutely awful. Am I going to put it on again? I might when when some people come round, just to see what happens. I certainly won't have it on in the car. Anyway, it's out. It's out now. Again, on Universal Records, a complete reproduction of what it was like. Look, it's in a polylined inner sleeve, which you know I really like, and they've mimicked the original Pink Island label with the eye on it. So yeah, and it's on 180 gram vinyl, and it sounds. Is it good pressing? It probably is. It's probably an absolutely fantastic pressing. But I don't know. If you've heard this album, let me know in the comments. Let me know. Am I being fair? If someone's out there who says, Phil, that's the best album ever made and it's got me through some really tricky times, I really want to hear from you. I think. Well, it's good to know that literally there is no stone being left unturned to what could be reissued on vinyl. The White Noise. Out now. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Let me know what you think. Remember, music is the healer and the doctor, usually. Take care. Thank you for all of your support. And remember, we have a merch store. You can join me on Patron and see lots of things before anyone else, and even some exclusive stuff as well. Check out the website, check out the podcast, join the Facebook group, and take care and keep spinning those discs, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon.